All right, so on Friday, we sorted shapes based on their sides. So today we're going to think about sorting shapes based on their angles. So if we look at the question below, I'm going to try to make this shorter, so you might have to pause to be able to have time to write your answers in. So just be prepared to pause, fill in your answer, and then press play to keep moving on. So we have a classroom computer game shows the player a set of categories and a set of shapes. The player puts each shape in the correct category. Draw an arrow from each shape to the category it belongs to. So we have A through F shapes here, and we're trying to sort them based on their angles. So we need to remember that an acute angle, that's kind of hard to see, an acute angle is less than 90 degrees. It's small. It's a cute little angle. A right angle is what we would see if we had a piece of paper. So we practiced doing this in class, drawing or using the corner of a piece of paper and setting it inside of the shape to be able to tell if it has a right angle or not. And our last option is obtuse. An obtuse angle is nice and wide, like it's opening its mouth. Obtuse. So we have a small angle is acute. We have a right angle, looks like a corner, and an obtuse angle is nice and wide. So we have all these different shapes, and it wants us to categorize them. Okay, so I went ahead and drew parallelograms A and B so that we would be able to see them without going back and forth. So it says, look at parallelograms A and B. Do they belong in the same group? Explain and draw the arrows to the correct groups. So we have A and B. And remember, we're just focusing on the angles right now. So if I look at this angle right here, okay, it's not going to draw for me. All right, if I look at this angle here, it's smaller, so that's an acute angle. This one is opened up. It's wider than a right angle, so it's obtuse. This one's obtuse, and this angle is acute. So we have two acute and two obtuse in parallelogram A. Parallelogram B looks a lot like A, only it's a little squatty. So we have an acute angle, an obtuse angle, an acute angle, and an obtuse angle. So they have the same number of different angles. So even though they don't look like the same shape, they still have the same angles. They have two obtuse and two acute. So look at parallel. After you're done writing that, go to the page before and go ahead and fill in your line that you're supposed to draw to match up those two, A and B, with the category acute and obtuse. Look at the two triangles. Describe the angles in each one. Look at the two triangles, describe the angles in each one. So I have my two triangles, I drew them on the left so that we don't have to keep scrolling. We have a triangle C has a right angle, and then these ones are tiny angles, so they're both acute. So triangle C is going to go in the acute and right category, and triangle D has small angle, small angle, small angle, which means that all three are acute. So are they going to go in the same category? They're not going to go in the same category. So we're going to fill in this blank. It says, look at the two triangles, describe the angles in each. So you might have to pause this to be able to write it. All right, and go ahead and draw your lines to match the triangles with their groups. Number 9, look at the trapezoid and the rectangle, which has right angles only. And then picture it, which group does the trapezoid belong? If you said F, you are correct. The next part says, picture it, which group does the trapezoid belong? So if we're looking at this trapezoid, we're thinking about the different angles. We have two angles that are nice and open. They're bigger than a right angle, so those are both obtuse. And then we have two angles that are smaller than a right angle, so those are both acute. So trapezoid E is going to go in the acute and obtuse category. Explain how to sort shapes based on whether they have acute, right, or obtuse angles. So if we're sorting based on this angles that they have, we need to think about all of the angles. We can't just think about one. For a right triangle, Just because it has a right angle doesn't mean that it only has right angles. The other two angles are always going to be acute. So when we're explaining how to sort the shapes, we need to write that we have to look at all of them. Label every angle on the shape before you sort the shape. So try it, number 11. Where does the rhombus on the right belong on the Venn diagram below? Mark the place with an X. So we have a small angle and a small angle that are opposite of each other. So those are acute. And then we have two wide angles, which are opposite of each other, and those are obtuse. So we have two acute, two obtuse. So it's not all acute, it's not all right, it's not all obtuse. So we're going to have to go in one of the categories that overlaps. So if I go in this category, it's overlapping right and obtuse, which is not what we are going to overlap. We have to overlap obtuse and acute. So we have obtuse, acute. So this section here is where we're going to put our X to show that it has obtuse angles and acute angles. We can't put it in the middle because there are no right angles. Circle the shape that has an acute, a right, and an obtuse angle. So if I look at the first shape, I have a rectangle here, which means that all four corners are right angles. So when we were just talking about how we are going to categorize it in number 10, we said we're going to label all of the angles before we start. So those are all right. So it does not have an acute and it does not have an obtuse. So this first rectangle is not our shape. This one has an acute angle here, acute here, obtuse, obtuse. It's missing the right angle, so that one's not it. Let's double check our last one. So we have a right angle here. That's a corner. This one looks like it's just an obtuse, just wide. This one's definitely obtuse, and this one is acute. So it wants to know which one has all three types of angles, and that's this one. Okay, follow the directions on Google Classroom so that you know which pages you need to do in your workbook. Your family has the answer key again on Class Dojo, so when you're finished, check your work, please, and ask what you did wrong if you get one wrong.